Namaste yogis, welcome to your practice. Today I'm going to guide you through a 30-minute yin style stretchy class. This class is for anyone who just wants to do something short and sweet, something more gentle, more stretch focused, but it's specifically for equestrians, people who ride horses. It's like a post-ride stretchy class. So this came as a request, a very specific request for someone. So, I always try to deliver on your requests, and I wanted to make sure to do this class for that person, as well as anybody else who rides horses. I think this class is also great for people who ride motorcycles, people who ride bicycles, riding in general. It's this general kind of hunching over action, using your adductor muscles a lot too, so kind of getting into the hips a little bit, as well as the lower back and the shoulder. So enjoy this class today. I hope you do, and please reach out to me if you have any other requests for anything, specific to you. As far as props go, I think 2 blocks will be useful, a blanket or a towel, and a bolster or a pillow. If you have a couple of pillows, that works nicely in place of a bolster. But for now, we're going to begin lying on our back. So set your props to the side. Have 1 or 2 blocks nearby for a supported pose that we're going to be doing in a moment. But just have them nearby so you can reach them. And lie down on your backs with your feet on the floor and your knees just pointing up. And just let your arms either rest by your sides, palms could face up or down. You can also rest your hands on your belly. Close your eyes. And let's just take a few breaths together. So nice big inhale through your nose. Now open your mouth and exhale. Good, do that 2 more times. Inhale through the nose. Out your mouth as you exhale. And then once more, inhale through the nose. And out your mouth as you exhale. Now keeping your mouth closed, start to breathe in and out through the nose. And relax your facial muscles, let your shoulders relax too. And just taking a moment to welcome yourself to your mat, to your space, saying hello to your body. Some of us literally just got off a horse, so letting yourself ground into the floor once again, ground into the earth beneath you. Good. Now blink your eyes open. And then if your hands are on your body somewhere, just let your arms relax by your sides. And then bring the feet a little closer to you. Have your feet about hips distance apart and parallel to one another. We're going to start with a few rounds of dynamic bridge poses, and we'll add the arms in a moment. Just start with the hips. So arms stay by your side. On an inhale, press the feet into the floor and just lift your hips up any amount. So see, you can lift the hips up off the mat. And then slowly exhale, lower your hips to the floor. And then do that again. So press the feet down, inhale, lift your hips up. And exhale, lower the hips down. Again, inhale, press the feet into the floor, lift your hips away from the floor. Exhale, lower the hips down. Now we're going to add the arms. Feel free to skip the arms if you prefer. Inhale, press the feet down, and then as you lift the hips, stretch the arms up towards the ceiling, and then take the arms overhead. And then from there, exhale, slowly lower the hips and lower your arms by your sides. Good, do that again. Press the feet down, inhale, lift your hips, stretch the arms all the way up and back. And then exhale, hips down, arms down by your sides. Just one more like that. Inhale, lift the hips, stretch the arms all the way up and overhead. And then as you exhale, lower the hips and the arms. Okay, good. Now, grab your block. And you can use 1 block. Remember, there's blocks, different heights, low height, medium height. If you want to add more height, just grab a second block and stack it on top of the first block. I want you to have a real wide base here. Now press your feet into the floor and then lift your hips up. Slide your block under your sacrum, so under that little bony plate in your lower back. And then once you have that set up, lower your back onto your blocks once again. And make sure too the block isn't too high. You want it to be just right above the buttocks, but below the lower back, below the lumbar spine. Now let your arms relax, and just take a few deep breaths here. Let the shoulders drop down, close your eyes. We're not going to do very long holds for this practice. I want to keep it short, but if you have extra time and you want to hold these poses a little longer, please do. Just hit the pause button and hang out. If this pose feels like exactly what you need and you want to spend a good 5-10 minutes here, by all means do it. Otherwise, just a few more breaths in this supported bridge pose. Okay, now some of us might feel like we need a little more of a stretch along the tops of your legs. So if that's the case for you and your back feels pretty open for that, then you start to take the legs straight out in front of you. Now, if you do this, and the legs can turn out a little bit, it's totally fine. But if you do this and you start to feel like a painful, really painful pinching sensation in the lower back, then just place your feet on the floor again and keep the knees bent. That's it. Otherwise, if this feels good, start to press the tops of your thighs down. So you're really getting the stretch along the hip flexor muscles. Few more breaths here. Again, you can close the eyes. For me, I tend to get very distracted with my eyes open, so I close the eyes. It's just a little more calming. Okay, now if your legs are out in front of you, start to walk your feet in again. And we're just going to do one more thing here before coming down. So again, you can keep your feet planted. You can always lower the height of the blocks if this is getting a little too intense. Otherwise, lift your feet off the floor, and we're going to take a moment in a kind of a variation of supported shoulder stand. So, in shoulder stand, you would stretch the legs up, and you can definitely do that as well. But I find that when my lower back is achy, if I keep my knees bent and just let my knees slowly rock from right to left, it's super soothing and healing on my lower back. Especially those little points on the sides of the sacrum. Good. So just a few more breaths like this. Good. And again, feel free to hang out here a little bit longer. All right. Good. Now, once you feel like you've done this for enough time, gently place your feet on the floor. Press your feet down. Lift your hips enough. Now, if you have two blocks underneath you or your block is at a higher height, first start by lowering the height of the block or just taking one block out. So kind of easing back to the floor. So for me, I had two blocks stacked. So I removed one of them and then I just dropped my hips to the lower height. And I'm going to just stay here for a couple of breaths. Good. Now press the feet down, lift your hips again, and then slide all the blocks out from underneath you. And you can set them to the side. We'll use them in a moment. And then once you're back on your back, separate your feet as wide as your sticky mats and bring your knees together to touch. So the feet are still on the mat, knees are still bent, but the knees are knocking in. Now open the arms out to the sides like a T. You can also do goalpost arms or like cactus elbows, bending the elbows, resting the backs of the hands on the floor. And let's do a few rounds of windshield wiper legs. So drop your knees to the right and then come back to center. Drop the knees to the left. Good. And just a few more times on your own. Lower the knees to the right, back to center, and to the left. And try to make these movements slow and smooth. Good. Linking movement to breath can also be very calming on the nervous system. Good. Now let the knees drop to the right and just allow them to stay there for a few extra breaths. Some of us like to place the right foot or outer ankle on top of the left outer thigh. So if that works for your body, do that. Otherwise, keep both feet on the floor. Okay. Another nice stretch for the lower back, as well as the psoas muscles. A lot of us have tight quads, the tops of the thighs, those hip flexor muscles. All right. Now release your right foot if you have it on the thigh. Come back to center. And then we'll do the second side. So drop the knees to the left. And then place your left ankle on top of the right thigh. If that's what you're taking. If not, keep both feet on the floor. Good. Now release your foot, come back to center, and then just for a moment, stretch your legs forward and then take your arms back. It's as if you're waking up from a long nap. Just give yourself a nice full body stretch. Big inhale. Now bring your knees into your chest and give yourself a good squeeze. Little gentle rock from side to side if it feels good. And then roll over to one side. So whatever side works, right or left. And then press down to lift up. Okay, let's make our way into a tabletop position from here. So just to prepare ourselves, set your 2 blocks, if you have them, near the front of your mat. Some books or something to stack up a little bit is also useful. And then a blanket to pad your knees with or your hips with is also nice to have nearby. You can also have your bolster or pillows. Now bring your hands under the shoulders. And let's just move the back a little bit. So cat and cow. Inhale, lift your chin, lift your sitting bones. So find a little back bend. And then exhale, round your back, press the mat away. Good. And then again, inhale, heart forward, send the pubic bone back. Exhale and round. We're going to add a little more movement. Inhale, same thing. So find the back bend. And then as you exhale, round your back and shift your hips towards your heels as if you're coming into child's pose. And then from there, press the hands down. Inhale, come back to the tabletop, and then find the little back bend. And then as you exhale, round and shift the hips towards the heels. And then do that one more time, nice and slow. Inhale, heart forward, slide the shoulders down your back. Exhale and round, hips towards the heels. Good. And then from here, come back to tabletop position. Now what I'm going to recommend, especially if you're tight, is to grab a couple of blocks and place them on your mat underneath your hands. And I'm going to go ahead and set my blocks at the highest height. You can do the same. Now place your right foot in between your blocks so you're in a lunge. And just get there however you can. Yeah, and then once you've done that, slide your back knee as far back as you can until you feel stretch in the top of your back thigh. You're also going to feel a little something on the outer right hip. Now for now, just make sure your right knee and your right foot are pointing forward and just let your hips sink. Yeah. Now your hands are on blocks. You can turn the blocks a couple of levels down, 1 level, 2 level. Some of us might not even need blocks or any kind of height. Then you can set your hands on the floor next to the right foot. Yeah. And again, this is not going to be a very long hold, just enough that you can feel a little bit of a stretch along the hips. Good. And I do recommend letting your head drop a little bit. Yeah, you don't have to let it drop all the way, but rather than looking forward or lifting your chin, kind of look towards the mat so the neck is nice and long. All right. Okay. Now, those of us that have the blocks, all right, you're going to keep your hands on your blocks again, but walk your hands or blocks slightly forward. Now, we're going to transition into Pigeon Pose. So this is kind of a tricky transition. If you need to come into it a different way, go ahead, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to give you a way to come into it. And for me, I'm going to go ahead and slide a blanket underneath my right hamstrings, like right underneath the right hip area. Now, walk your hands in front of you and just move your right foot to the left side of your mat. So heel toe the right foot to the left side of your mat. Now from there, drop your right knee down towards the mat on the right side. And you could probably bring your hands to the floor at this point. Good. Now a lot of us, our hips are tight, so I do not expect your right shin bone to be parallel to the front of the mat. In fact, go ahead and grab your right ankle and move the foot back a little bit. So it's a little easier for the hips to drop to the floor, okay? Now this blanket or whatever you're using to pad your right hip is there to support you, okay? Now, pigeon pose is not for everybody. If you need an alternative, lie down on your back and then thread the needle, crossing your right ankle above your left thigh. Now, I'll show it in case you're not sure what I mean. So you'll just lie on your back, right ankle on left thigh, and you'll bring your left knee towards you, okay? Otherwise, if you can manage to come into pigeon, I find that it's a little more effective because gravity is working for you, not against you like it would be if you were on your back. Now, once you've settled here, just for a moment, hang onto your fingertips and just lift your chest up. Good. If this is too much on the lower back, take your hands a few inches forward and draw your belly in. Now, take another breath in. And then let's all just start to drop forward. So bring your forearms down. Some of us are going to extend the arms in front of us and let the forehead drop to the floor. Yeah, and the key is you want the stretch, the majority of the stretch to be in the muscly area, the bigger muscles around the hip joint area. If you start to feel like pain in the knee joint, you need to adjust, maybe bend the front knee a little bit deeper. Yeah. And the back leg is extending straight back. So straight back towards the wall behind you. And you're not leaning to the right or to the left. You're right in the middle there. Close your eyes, take a few more breaths. And again, you have the option of holding this pose for a while longer. And again, if you have time, I do highly recommend taking longer holds here. All right. Good. Now place your hands on the floor again, so lift yourself up. And then we're going to make our way back to our original position. So if you moved your blocks out of the way, you're going to kind of bring them back near the front of the mat so they're handy for the second side. And then press your hands down, just kind of lift the hips and make your way back into a tabletop pose. All right. Now once you're in the tabletop pose, let your hips kind of sway from right to left. Just a little bit of that back and forth. And just clearing out that stretch that we just had on that right side. And it can definitely feel intense, especially if you're on the tighter side. Okay. Now come back to center, and then let's grab our blocks and place your hands on your blocks. Good. Now place your left foot in between your blocks. And once you've done that, you can take a longer stance. So try to keep your left knee above the ankle or maybe just a little bit in front of it. And then slide your back knee as far back as your body allows. Good. And again, the blocks are there to support you. Stay a little more upright. Some of us are perfectly fine taking the blocks down 1-2 levels or even sliding the blocks out of the way. Yeah. And let your head relax. A couple more deep breaths here. I find that these stretches are both pleasing and uncomfortable at the same time. And that's kind of the idea with Yin Yoga. There's this little bit of discomfort, but it helps us when we sit in that discomfort for a while. We kind of raise our level of being able to be uncomfortable, which sometimes discomfort is inevitable in life. All right. Now from there, remember, you can set your hands on the blocks again if you'd like a little more support if they're not already. But walk your hands in front of your left foot. Okay. Now if you're making your way onto your back for thread the needle, start to head there. Otherwise, heel toe your left foot to the right a bit. And then start, I'm going to grab my blanket again to support my left hip. And then lower your left shin bone onto the floor so your left knee is over to the right. You might find that this side's tighter. It is for me anyway. So I'm going to take my right hand, hold my left ankle, and just pull that foot back a little more. So it's, it's a little nicer on the knee joint. You want to feel the stretch in the muscles, not the joints. Let's always remember that. And then from there, once your back leg is reaching back, if you're in the pigeon, start first on your fingertips. Just kind of lift your chest here. Good. It feels like a little bit of a back bend. Some of us keep the hands a little bit further forward and engage your lower belly muscles. So it's not so much on the lower back. Okay. Now take another breath here. And then let's start to fold once again. So drop your elbows to the mat. And again, keep in mind, you don't want to lean too far to the left. I see this a lot in my classes where people are kind of leaning to the left. You're not going to feel the stretch in the hip at all. So if that's the case, if that's what's happening, sorry, dog hair everywhere, you're going to take your back outer hip down a little bit, the right outer hip down, so that the hips are a little more level. And then close your eyes. And just nice slow breaths in and out through the nose. Okay. Again, feel free to stay longer if you have the time. Otherwise, lift your head up again and walk your hands back towards your left shin bone. Now, from there, you can use your blocks once again if you need to. Lift your hips up and then come back to the tabletop position. Slide your blankets out of the way. Good. And then one more time, just let the hips shift from side to side to side. Okay. Now let's stretch the front of the shoulders a little bit. So if you have blocks or anything you're using for your hands, move them out of the way. And then just kind of crawl onto your belly. So drop your forearms to the floor, lie down on your belly for just a moment with your forearms propping your chest up. Okay. Now this is a wonderful stretch for the front of the shoulder. Start first by reaching your right arm to the right with the palm of your right hand facing the floor. Now lower your right shoulder down to the mat, so you're on your belly. And then from there, using your left hand, you're going to just roll onto your right side. And then you can place your left foot on the floor behind your right leg. Now, make sure that you're not overdoing it in the shoulder. If you have shoulder injuries, there's a couple of things you can do. You can take your hand a little bit lower, so not so much shoulder level, perhaps slightly lower, that might be a little bit better. You can also do this stretch against the wall. So if, again, gravity is pushing you a little bit. If that's too much, you just face the wall. You can do this kneeling or standing, and then stretch the right arm to the right, again, shoulder level, and then just turn your upper body, your whole body really, opposite from where the hand is reaching. So you can see the similarities there. And I find if your shoulders are feeling good, doing the version on the floor is really useful. That's it. And if you want to take this even further, if your shoulder's pretty open, you can place both feet on the floor with your knees bent. And it's almost like your lower half of the body is in a bridge pose prep. And you're getting a little twist out of it too. Good. But just know that this is not a stretch competition. So, just be mindful of your bodies and respect your body's limitations. It's always a good idea to set an intention before class to make peace with your body. Good. Now roll onto your belly again, and then we'll do the same thing on the second side. So whatever you're doing, just repeat it on the second side. So left arm out to the side. Good.
Right foot on the floor behind your left leg as you lean to the left. Good. And remember, the options too are to place both feet on the floor, good, to change the position of your arm. Good. And if you're doing this version on the floor, make sure that your head is resting on the floor too. Add a little height if you need to, if the head doesn't quite make it. Okay. Just a few more breaths. I find there's a tendency in these kinds of classes to get a little bit restless. So, just acknowledge that if you start to get a little fidgety, you want to start checking your phone, try to resist that urge and just let yourself be still for a moment longer. All right, one more inhale. Now exhale, come onto your belly again. And then just using your hands, press yourself back up into a tabletop position and move to child's pose for a few breaths. So shift the hips to the heels, relax your forehead on the floor. You can always use some support between your calves and your hips if you want a little padding there, or place something under the forehead. Good. All right. Nice. We're almost there. Place your hands on the floor and then just come into a seat, okay? Now, I'm going to give you some options for this next shape. We're going to move into a little hip opener, side bend, and then we're going to go to our finishing pose, and that's it. So option number one is to cross your right leg in front of your left leg. And if you can see, I'm crossing my legs more at the center of my shin bones versus like sometimes you cross at the ankles and you kind of pull your feet back. So have your heels more in line with your knees and your shin bones are parallel to the front of your mat. Good. Now add some height under your hips if you need to, okay? The other option, this pose is called cow face pose or Gomukasana. You're basically going to stack your right knee on top of your left knee. And there's different ways to get into this. If you're fairly open, you can just kind of cross the left knee in front of the right knee, on top of the right knee, just kind of do it. And your feet, the more open you are, the feet can slide forward a bit. If this is a hard pose to get into, you can try coming into it from a tabletop position. I find that this helps too. And then take your right knee behind your left knee on the floor, separate the feet, and then sit down that way, okay? If you need to, add a little padding here as well. So sometimes to get the hips to the floor is just really challenging. So you can sit up on something instead, all right? Otherwise, just take the other version where you're crossing one leg in front of the other. This knee stack pose, this cow face or Gomukasana pose, is going to give you a deeper stretch if you're trying to do the harder thing, the more challenging thing. Now sit up tall. Okay, now super important, the right knee is either in front of or on top of your left knee. Now you're going to place your left hand on the floor. Okay, reach your right arm up and then side bend to the left. Now let your left elbow bend, reaching it to the floor. It might not come all the way down, it might kind of hover. Some of us can get it down, but as you extend, as you reach to the left, press your right sitting bone down to the floor. Yeah, so really press the right sitting bone. And this to me, gives me such a satisfying stretch right along that QL area. So those of us that have sciatic issues, sometimes you feel one side is off and the other, you have a little more pain on the left or the right. This can really allow for a little bit of stretching, a little bit of freedom, a little bit of release. Good. Now press your left hand down, come on up, and then just either stay upright or walk your hands forward and then fold forward. Good. If you're in this shape with the knees stacked, or even whatever shape you're in, if your feet are within reach of your hands, great opportunity to give yourself a little foot rub. Especially if you've been wearing, tight shoes, Our feet, the bottoms of our feet take a big beating daily. And, we don't give them enough love. So just kind of giving the bottoms of the feet a love. Okay. Now start to slowly inhale, rise. And then lean back, stretch your legs in front of you, give the knees a shake. Whatever you are, just take the legs forward, shake out the knees. All right, now we're going to switch sides. So cross your left leg in front of your right leg. Okay, that's option one. And if you do the side bend, you're just going to do it over to the right this time. If you're taking the cow face pose, find your position, left knee on top of the right knee. Prop your hips, give yourself the support that you need. Good. And then we're all going to lean to the right. So once you find your seat, and again, take your time, place your right hand on the mat, reach your left arm up, and then side bend over to the right. Good. Yeah, and then, as you lower down, you'll notice that left hip is going to kind of move with you. So keep anchoring your left sitting bone down. It doesn't have to be 100% on the mat, but just reach it in that direction. And just a few more breaths. So really feeling the side bend. Good. Now press your left hand down. Inhale, slowly come up, or right hand down rather. And then release this. Wick your hands in front of you and start to fold forward wherever you are. Good. Just a couple more deep breaths. Okay. Again, if you'd like to hold these longer, press pause and hold a little bit longer. Otherwise, walk your hands back in. Straighten your legs out in front of you. Give the knees a little shake. And then we're going to lie on our backs again. And I'm going to recommend having a bolster or a pillow. We're finishing with a spinal twist on our back. So start first by lying down and bringing both knees into your chest. Good. Now we're going to take a twist starting with the knees to the left. Now I'm going to turn around just so I'm facing you. Before doing that though, I recommend placing your feet on the floor and then shifting your pelvis to the right. So lift your hips, move the hips to the right, and then lower the hips down. Once you have that, your hips are over to the right a little. Bring both knees into your chest, and then lower your knees down to the left. So once you've done that, your hips and your shoulders should be more in line. Now, adding a prop between your thighs can make this really just wonderful and restorative, or under your left thigh. If you have any leg variations you want to work with here, some of us like to cross a knee on top of the other. Yeah, and then giving the knees, like hugging them in close to you, is going to help you feel a little more of a stretch. And you can always place your left hand on your right outer thigh. Just kind of give it a gentle press to the floor as you get the right shoulder to reach down to. If you want a little neck stretch, turn the head to the right as well. Good, one more breath. And now exhale, start to release that side, come back to center. And then we'll do the second side. So scooch your hips to your left now, and then bring the knees into the chest, lower the knees to the right. And again, use support if you need to between your legs. Yeah. And as your knees drop to the right, turn the ribs to the left. Yeah. So spinal twist can be so therapeutic on the back, especially if you're riding and you're kind of pounding with the horse and there's like this just kind of feeling of everything becoming a little more compressed. So we're just creating some space now. A few more breaths here. Now to finish off, come onto your back once again. So I'm going to recommend a bolster for a couple of different things. Okay, and the bolsters are not necessary, pillows or whatever. The pose that we're coming into is called Supta Baddha Konasana. So basically you're lying on your back, bottoms of the feet together, knees wide, and you're just going to rest here, okay? Now I love using props to support my body. So here are a couple of things you can do. You can take your bolster and place it behind you to create a supported back bend. So just kind of take your bolster the long way behind you, slide the short edge of your bolster against your lower back, and then just lie down with your shoulders and your head and everything draping on your pillows or your bolster. So that's option one. Good. That's probably the option I would go to right now. Option number two, if your hips are tight, is to take your pillow or bolster, place it underneath your knees, right? So slide your bolster under your legs. And then same thing, bottoms of the feet together. That way your knees and your legs are supported. So it's less kind of gravity pressing you down, but you're still getting a nice stretch, okay? Now, if you want a little more of an inner thigh stretch, it's very similar to what we were just doing, except you're gonna kind of move your bolster a little bit forward and place the feet on top of your bolster. So your feet are elevated, and that's gonna give you more of a stretch on the inner thighs. So those inner thighs are working hard, whatever it is that you're riding. You're kind of squeezing or adducting your outer legs in, so we're just releasing those inner thighs. Good, and this feels pretty good too. Now let your arms relax, close your eyes, and just take some slow breaths. And let this be just a moment, a little meditation moment for yourself. A moment to pause and reflect. A moment to feel gratitude for all the blessings that you have in your life. Your ability to be in nature, be outdoors, riding your horse or your motorcycle, your bicycle. Gratitude for your body's ability to be able to do these things. Not everybody has that privilege or capability. And then for the last few moments here, let the effort go. Just let the effort in the breath, in the mind, and in the body. Just let it all go for a moment. Now, I do encourage you to stay here longer if you have the time. But if you do not have the time, then start to slowly stretch your legs forward, reach your arms back, give yourself a nice long stretch. Bring your knees back into your chest, be gentle. Roll onto your left side, pause. And then just press yourself up into a seat. Good. If you'd like to sit for a few moments and meditate a little bit longer, please do so. Otherwise, this is where I'll leave you. I hope you enjoyed this class. I might share another kind of equestrian focus class. I live in an equestrian neighborhood, so I'm going to actually post this on my YouTube channel as well. The next class will probably be more preparation for horseback riding. So some of the poses, like balancing poses or core strengthening poses, that really help us feel strong and stable on our horses, our bikes, our motorcycles. Hope you enjoyed class. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Go in peace.